Hey, 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 happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to What Would Dorcy Do Friday. Friday, it's Friday. We love Fridays around here. And today I am bringing you the topic of what to do when your child threatens physical violence or harm to you, your maybe your current spouse, or maybe themselves. So we frequently encounter situations where alienated children will threaten to harm their beloved parent, their targeted chosen parent, or they'll harm themselves if the child is forced to spend any time with you, the chosen parent. So we see this probably in about 75 to 90% of the cases that we work on. And oftentimes parents will stop seeing their children, or they'll make rash decisions or react to the child out of fear that the child will harm themselves or others. And what we have found to be true is that children make idle threats because they are backed into a corner, if you will, or they're being coached by the other parent to create a scenario because you're closing in, or they feel like you're closing in, or that you're enforcing your parenting time. So a lot of times the court or mental health providers or people, the professionals surrounding the case, your family will back off, right? They'll say, well, there's nothing we can do. And they'll not force an issue. And I love the word force. They like to use the word force because using the word force is a common associated clinical sign in the symptomology that we see in kids. And so what would I do if the child is threatening to harm me or threatening to harm themselves if I enforce my parenting time? And what I would do is I would enforce my parenting time, because the threat is often a false threat and created in a space of which the pathogenic parent through the child is trying to get you to leave, right? Trying to get you to disconnect from the child. The child is acting out in protest because they're caught in the loyalty bind between you and the other parent. And so what seems like the intuitive thing to do would be to walk away, to not pressure the child out of fear. Everybody gets afraid when they think the child is going to kill themselves. And you would want to seek immediate help with the appropriate mental health providers if the child is suicidal. So we never want to take the threat of physical harm or suicide, right, for themselves or harm to you. We never want to not take it seriously. However, we want to properly assess, and you can do this as a parent as well. Assess the situation. Is your child a suicidal kid? Is this something that has just been brought on because the court is enforcing your parenting time, or things are escalating and you're enforcing your parenting time? And now the child says, I'm going to jump out of the moving car if you force me to come on your parenting time. And the answer is no, right? It's very, 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 very unlikely that the child is going to jump out of a moving car if you force the child to come on your parenting time. And it's important to enforce your parenting time, because when you don't, what you're reinforcing in the child is that protest behavior, right, is rewarded if they're getting what they want, or the other parent is getting what they want by weaponizing your child. And so what you want to do instead is you want to acknowledge that the child is upset, right? That the child is escalated, that their emotions are out of control. And then if the child is making a threat to you, it's not appropriate to just abandon the child, right? It's not appropriate to turn the child into the authorities, for example, unless the child actually has like a gun to your head. Then that escalates things, right? And then the escalation gets used against you as another layer of reasons why they shouldn't and don't want to spend time with you. And so when a child makes a physical threat, you always want to make sure that everybody is safe, including the child. This is a child, okay? So you want to make sure everybody is safe. Even young adult children, you want to make sure that they're safe. This is your child. So even if your child is a young adult, they're still your child. and you want to make sure everybody is safe. So you don't want to put yourself or your family or including your child in harm's way. You don't want to create a situation where the child has to follow through with the coached behavior. So if the child is coached to harm you, you don't want to put yourself or your child in a situation where that behavior would escalate, where the child feels like they have to do that in order to save face. Okay. At the same time, you don't want to react or overreact to it in a way that holds your child at bay. So recently we had a parent reach out to the child, and the child made a threat back that he was going to harm the parent and the step parent. And the dad reacted by calling the police, was afraid that the child was actually going to hurt them, called the police, and had the young adult child arrested. That if your intention is to reunite with your child, and the first reaction is to react that way, that's going to create a bigger separation with the child. Now, is the child going to kill the parent? Not likely. The child in that situation, that child was reacting in protest because there had been a massive rift in the family, right? There was a massive crevasse, a break, a split a breach in the relationship. And so when the parent is trying to bridge the gap, right, and it's been a while, the child's acting out in protest and saying things in protest. And if the parent's reaction to the protest behavior is to react and to act in ways that reinforces that the child is bad, then you're going to hold the child at bay. Okay. And so what to do instead is, of course, always make sure that you're safe. So if you really feel like you're unsafe, you want to put the safety precautions in place, right? Make sure your doors are locked, right? Make sure that you're around other people if your child, acts out physically. But at the same time, what you want to do is shift the way your child is showing up by shifting the way that you're showing up, by holding the container for the child to say, hey, listen, I can see you're upset. Violence isn't the answer, right? And holding that space of not just intention, the belief that you want your child to be safe and to not act out in violence, but the belief that your child, excuse me, is a good person, and that sometimes good people act out badly, right, or poorly. And so you don't want to push your alienated child away. And so we're really talking to parents that have kids that have either acted out or kids that are threatening to act out. And sometimes the child will act out in protest behavior. And so now we have an incident or a couple of incidents where maybe there was a physical tussle. And so now the reaction is like to pounce back, right? To overreact because we're afraid. And that doesn't solve anything. And so when we're in that situation, we want to not react. Okay. So it's okay to respond, but a response comes when your emotions are managed. When we react, our emotions are usually unmanaged. So we make decisions in a what I call a swirly whirly brain, right? Where your problem solving side of your brain is really on holiday and the emotional side of your brain is spinning, and that's created in fear. And so if you remember last Friday, I talked about there's two things of which we take action on. We either act on fear or we act on love, and that's it. And so anger, guilt, shame, all those things are fear-based things. So when we react in that mindset, right, we pounce, right? We defend, we do those things. When we react from a place of love, we can hold the container for the child, right? We can hold the space of which we allow the child to come forward. So when we say things to the child and they react, right, with protest, threats of violence, threats of self-harm, we want to make sure always that the child is safe and that we're safe, right? And then we respond to it. I'm resisting the desire to read all of the text. I know my team is handling the text over here, and I just really want to focus on giving What Would Dorcy Do on Fridays. So I'll be coming at you live every Friday for a quick little tip for the week on what I would do in certain situations. We have lots of things that we experience here at the Conscious Co-Parenting Institute, where we see lots and lots of common themes, common threads of situations. And I'll close with what would you do, or what would I do when a child acts out in protest. I had a client whose kid was really acting out in violence towards her, and the ex-husband was violent as well. And so oftentimes this family dynamic is a continuation of intimate partner violence. So if you have a physically violent ex-partner, oftentimes you'll have that protest in the child. They're learning that their child is being used as a weapon. If you have an emotionally abusive ex, then or a co-parent, oftentimes the child will come in that way. And we want to react because we either never did and then we feel defensive, or we do nothing. And so it's trying to find that balance of really holding the space so that you're that soft place for the child to land. And, I had a client and the court screwed up. The case was in the legal system for 3 years. The kid was acting out in protest. They finally gave the mom custody, but they didn't put a protective order in place. And so the court underacted and then overreacted and then gave mom full custody, but they wouldn't put a protective order in place from the actual abusive parent, the psychologically abusive parent. And the child did act out. He acted out in violence towards her. He was punching her, and he actually put a rope around her neck and threatened to kill her if she continued to enforce her parenting time. And this child also threatened before. The court refused to place the child with her because he kept threatening to jump out of a moving car if he was forced to go on his parenting time. And of course, he never did that. But he did act out in violence towards her when she was in the car, right? Where she was defenseless and in the car. And she could have very easily called the police, turned her child in, filed assault charges against him. He did assault her, right? He was a teenager and he harmed her physically. And instead of doing that, she chose a different path. Okay. She chose the path to hold the container for her son and to help him when his emotions were not unmanaged, process through what happened and help him understand the consequences of his behavior. She was also then able to get a protective order and was able to recover her son. That was probably 3 years ago. I think it's 3 or 4 years ago. And the child has a relationship with both parents. The other parent, the father, hasn't changed, but the mother, she learned the skills that she needed to learn in order to stabilize her son, not react, right? Not do what you would think you should do, to really be the trustworthy parent, to really be the soft place for her child to land. And, he did act out in violence towards her. And it was really scary. I remember her calling me, when that right after that happened. And I had been working with her for a while, and I was like, holy crap. Right. And, he didn't just threaten, he just did it. Right. And it was really scary for her. And it was really scary for me. It was like, oh my gosh. And at the same time, the advice was the same. Are you unsafe? How do you create the container of safety in your home? What are the things that you can put in place now? And while you move through getting a proper protective order, she could have filed that order against her son, but instead the order was placed against the dad. And she was then able to really create the container, right? The soft place for her child to land. She stayed in that space for him. So that's what I would do. And even in the space of fear, and in the space of, even if your child is acting out, don't put yourself or your child in harm's way. Put yourself with other people. Give the child the opportunity to learn and do a different thing. All right. That's what I have for you on this Friday. For those of you that like to ask questions and interact with me, we do have the Chosen Parent Collective. I know my team's probably put it in the thread. Our next live call is next Wednesday. It's the first Wednesday of every month. You come to a Zoom meeting with me and the other chosen parents in the collective, and we go deep. We get into the nitty-gritties of your situation, and we do a couple hot seats, and I will answer questions. And then it's recorded and placed in the membership site. We also have a forum there. So for those of you that want to ask ongoing questions, you can go into the forum in the Chosen Parent Collective and have your questions answered there. But I'll be coming here Fridays at 2:00 to do What Would Dorcy Do? Just one little tidbit of information that I'm going to drop in here in the Alliance for you guys so that you have some of the latest and greatest and awesome tools that we teach our parents here at the Conscious Co-Parenting Institute. So I hope you have an awesome Friday. Be an amazing weekend. Super Bowl weekend's next weekend. I can't wait. So for your football fans, maybe we'll bring some football stuff to you next Friday. Anyways, thank you so much for tuning in to What Would Dorcy Do Friday. We'll see you next week. Have a great weekend, everyone. Bye.